The dense canopy of pine trees loomed overhead as I trudged deeper into the forest, the beam of my flashlight barely penetrating the thick darkness. I'd always been skeptical of the local legends about creatures lurking in these woods, but as the night grew darker and the silence more oppressive, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It had started as a simple camping trip, a chance to clear my head and escape the hustle of city life. But as I ventured further off the beaten path, seeking the perfect spot to set up camp, I realized I'd lost my way. The trees all looked the same, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers in the gloom. That's when I heard a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest as I swept the flashlight beam around, searching for the source of the sound. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and fragile in the vast wilderness. "Is anyone there?" No response came, save for the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but deep down, I knew better. Something was out there, watching and waiting. As I resumed my trek, desperately hoping to find my way back to the main trail, the forest seemed to close in around me. The air grew thick and heavy, filled with an earthy, almost primordial scent that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Suddenly, my flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into near total darkness. Panic set in as I fumbled with the device, trying in vain to coax it back to life. That's when I saw a pair of glowing eyes in the darkness, watching me from between the trees. I stumbled backward, my heart racing as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. The eyes were too high off the ground to belong to any normal forest creature, and they seemed to pulse with an otherworldly intelligence. "What are you?" I whispered, my voice trembling with fear. As if in response, a massive shape began to emerge from the shadows. It was vaguely humanoid, but far too tall and broad to be human. Its body seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it couldn't quite decide on a solid form. I turned and ran, branches whipping at my face as I crashed through the underbrush. I could hear it behind me, its heavy footfalls shaking the ground as it gave chase. My lungs burned as I pushed myself harder, desperate to escape. Just when I thought my legs would give out, I spotted a clearing up ahead. In the center stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows dark and empty. Without thinking, I raced towards it, praying it would offer some kind of sanctuary. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me and leaning against it, gasping for breath. The interior of the cabin was musty and cold, filled with broken furniture and layers of dust. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I noticed something that made my blood run cold: claw marks, deep and savage, scoring the walls and floor. A low rumble from outside reminded me of the immediate danger. I looked around frantically for something to defend myself with, settling on a rusty fire poker leaning against the fireplace. "Stay back!" I shouted, my voice cracking with fear as I brandished the makeshift weapon. The creature outside let out a bone-chilling roar that shook the very foundations of the cabin. I could hear it circling, its massive form brushing against the outer walls. Then, suddenly, silence fell. Minutes ticked by, each second feeling like an eternity as I strained my ears for any sign of the beast. Just as I began to hope it had given up, a new sound reached me, a soft, almost melodic whisper that seemed to come from within the cabin itself. "We've been waiting for you," the voice said, its tone both alluring and terrifying. I spun around, trying to locate the source of the voice, but the cabin appeared empty. "Who's there?" I demanded, gripping the fire poker so tightly my knuckles turned white. "We are the guardians of this forest," the voice replied, now seeming to come from multiple directions at once. "We've watched you, followed you, guided you here." A chill ran down my spine as I realized the implications of those words. "What do you want from me?" The air in the cabin began to shimmer, and before my eyes, translucent figures started to materialize. They were humanoid in shape, but their features were fluid, constantly shifting and changing. Their eyes, however, remained constant, glowing with the same eerie light I'd seen in the forest. "We want you to join us," one of the figures said, its voice a chorus of whispers. "To become one with the forest, to shed your mortal form and embrace eternity." I backed away, my mind reeling from what I was seeing and hearing. "This can't be real," I muttered, squeezing my eyes shut and willing it all to be a nightmare. When I opened my eyes, the figures were gone, but the sense of their presence remained. Outside, I could hear the creature moving again, its massive form circling the cabin with predatory patience. I knew I couldn't stay in the cabin forever, but the thought of venturing back into the forest filled me with dread. What other horrors awaited me out there? And what did these entities really want from me? As the night wore on, I huddled in a corner of the cabin, the fire poker clutched to my chest like a lifeline. Every creak of the old structure, every whisper of wind through the trees outside, sent my heart racing. I tried to rationalize what I'd seen, to convince myself it was all just a hallucination brought on by fear and exhaustion, but deep down, I knew the truth. The forest was alive in ways I'd never imagined, filled with creatures and entities that defied explanation. And somehow, for reasons I couldn't begin to fathom, they had chosen me. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the grimy windows of the cabin, I made a decision. I couldn't stay here, cowering in fear. I had to find a way out of these woods, to get back to civilization and the safety of the familiar. But as I steeled myself to leave the relative safety of the cabin, a part of me wondered if I'd ever truly escape. The forest had shown me things that couldn't be unseen, opened my eyes to a world beyond human understanding. And something told me that no matter how far I ran, a part of me would always remain here, lost in the deep, dark woods where ancient secrets and primordial terrors lurked just beyond the veil of reality. With trembling hands, I reached for the cabin door, ready to face whatever awaited me outside. As I turned the handle, I heard that ethereal whisper once more, "Remember, you can never truly leave. The forest is a part of you now, and you are a part of it. We will be waiting for your return." I pushed the door open, squinting against the pale morning light. The woods seemed different somehow, both familiar and alien. As I took my first tentative steps outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger, more terrifying journey. The creature that had stalked me through the night was nowhere to be seen, but I could feel its presence, watching from just beyond my perception. And as I began to make my way through the trees, seeking a path back to the world I knew, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Every shadow held the potential for terror, every rustle in the underbrush a possible harbinger of horrors beyond imagination. I had glimpsed a world hidden beneath the surface of our reality, a world of cryptids and cosmic entities that defied explanation. As I walked, I found myself looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see those glowing eyes or shimmering figures materializing among the trees. The forest seemed to breathe around me, alive in a way I'd never noticed before. Hours passed as I wandered, the sun climbing higher in the sky, filtered through the dense canopy above. Just as I was beginning to lose hope of ever finding my way out, I heard a sound that made my heart leap the distant rumble of traffic. I quickened my pace, pushing through the underbrush towards the promise of civilization. But with each step, a strange reluctance began to grow within me. It was as if a part of me didn't want to leave, didn't want to return to the mundane world I'd left behind. As I reached the edge of the forest, the trees thinning out to reveal a highway in the distance, I paused. Looking back at the deep, dark woods that had been my prison and my revelation, I felt a pull, an almost physical sensation urging me to return. "This isn't over," I whispered to myself, knowing with certainty that my encounter with the unknown was far from finished. I stepped out of the forest and began the long walk towards the highway, my mind reeling with the experiences of the past night. But even as I flagged down a passing car and began the journey back to my old life, I knew that a part of me remained behind, lost in those deep, dark woods. And somewhere in the shadows of the forest, ancient eyes watched my departure, patient and eternal, knowing that sooner or later, I would return. For once you've glimpsed the true face of the wilderness, once you've encountered the cryptids and entities that lurk in the hidden corners of our world, you can never truly escape. The forest had marked me, claimed me in some fundamental way. And as I settled into the passenger seat of the stranger's car, watching the trees recede in the rearview mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling that my journey into terror had only just begun. The whispers of the forest entities echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the world I'd discovered and the horrors that awaited my return. For I knew now that the legends were true, that the deep woods held secrets far beyond human understanding. And somewhere out there, in the vast wilderness that stretched across the land, other unsuspecting souls were about to embark on their own journeys into terror, their own encounters with the cryptids and horrors that lurked just beyond the veil of our reality. As the car sped down the highway, taking me back to the world I thought I knew, I closed my eyes and saw again those glowing orbs in the darkness, heard the whispers of ancient entities calling me back to the forest. And I knew, with a mixture of dread and exhilaration, that this was only the beginning of my story. For once you've walked in the realm of forest phantoms and cryptid horrors, you can never truly return to the light. The shadows will always call to you, the deep woods will always beckon, and the creatures that dwell in the darkness will forever be a part of your world. And so, as I journeyed away from the forest that had changed me forever, I couldn't help but wonder, when would the call become too strong to resist? When would I find myself drawn back into the heart of darkness, ready to face the horrors that awaited me there? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the deep woods and their terrifying secrets were now a part of me, and my journey into the realm of cryptid horrors was far from over. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, but the memories of that night in the forest haunted my every waking moment. I tried to return to my normal life, but the whispers of the entities lingered in the back of my mind, a constant reminder of the world beyond our understanding. It was on a crisp autumn evening when the call became too strong to ignore. I found myself driving back to those woods, drawn by an inexplicable urge I couldn't resist. As I parked at the trailhead, the sun dipping below the horizon, I knew there was no turning back. The forest seemed to welcome me, the trees parting as if to guide my path. The air thrummed with an energy I'd never noticed before, alive with whispers and secrets. As darkness fell, I clicked on my flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom like a knife. "I'm here," I called out, my voice trembling. "Show yourselves." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, a rustling in the underbrush caught my attention. I swung my flashlight towards the sound, my heart pounding in my chest. What emerged from the shadows made my blood run cold. It was a deer, but unlike any I'd ever seen. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly intelligence, and its antlers twisted into impossible shapes, forming symbols that hurt my eyes to look at. As it stepped into the clearing, I noticed its hoofs left smoldering prints in the earth. "Welcome back," a voice whispered on the wind. "We knew you'd return." The deer's mouth didn't move, but I knew the words had come from it. I stumbled backward, my mind reeling from the impossibility of what I was seeing. "What are you?" I gasped. The deer tilted its head, its antlers shifting and reforming. "We are the guardians, the watchers, the keepers of ancient secrets. And you, mortal, have been chosen." Before I could respond, the ground beneath my feet began to shift and writhe. Roots burst from the earth, wrapping around my ankles. I tried to run, but the forest itself seemed determined to hold me in place. "Don't fight it," the deer thing said, its voice now a chorus of whispers. "Embrace your destiny." As I struggled against the roots, the air around me began to shimmer and distort. Translucent figures emerged from the trees, their forms fluid and ever-changing. I recognized them as the entities from the cabin, but now they seemed more solid, more real. One of them glided towards me, its featureless face inches from mine. "We have waited eons for one like you," it said, its voice like rustling leaves. "A bridge between worlds, a vessel for our return." Terror gripped me as I realized the true nature of my situation. I wasn't just a witness to these horrors, I was meant to be a part of them. "I don't want this," I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. "Please, let me go." The entity's form rippled, and for a moment, I saw a face that was almost human, filled with an ancient sadness. "It's too late," it said. "The forest has chosen you. You cannot escape your destiny." As if on cue, the roots holding me began to pulse with an eerie light. I felt a strange sensation spreading through my body, as if my very essence was being rewritten. The boundaries between my flesh and the forest floor began to blur, and I could feel the ancient power of the woods seeping into my veins. "What's happening to me?" I cried out, watching in horror as my skin began to take on the texture of bark. The deer thing stepped closer, its antlers now a crown of twisted symbols. "You are becoming one with the forest," it explained. "A bridge between the mortal world and ours. Through you, we will walk among humans once again." Images flashed through my mind, ancient rituals performed in moonlit clearings, creatures of myth and legend stalking through primordial forests, and civilizations long lost to time that knew the true nature of the world. I saw myself as I would become, a being of both flesh and wood, neither fully human nor fully something else. As the transformation continued, I felt my consciousness expanding. I could sense every tree, every blade of grass, every creature that called these woods home. The forest was alive in ways I'd never imagined, a vast, interconnected web of life and energy. But with this newfound awareness came a terrifying realization. The entities that surrounded me, the creatures that defied explanation, they were just the tip of the iceberg. Beyond them lurked horrors so vast and alien that my mind recoiled from their very existence. "Please," I begged, my voice now sounding like creaking wood. "I don't want to see anymore." The entity nearest to me placed a shimmering hand on my transforming shoulder. "You must see," it insisted. "For you are the key, the one who will open the door." Suddenly, my vision split. With one set of eyes, I saw the forest around me. With another, I peered into a realm beyond human comprehension. Vast, cosmic entities writhed in the void, their forms so alien and terrifying that I felt my sanity begin to slip. I saw great cities built of non-Euclidean geometry, inhabited by beings that defied the laws of physics. I witnessed the birth and death of universes, the grand cosmic cycle that dwarfed all of human existence. And through it all, I sensed an hunger and all-consuming desire to break through into our world, to remake reality in their image. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I was to be their conduit, their way into our dimension. No, I screamed, my voice echoing with the power of the forest. I won't let you through. With every ounce of willpower I had left, I fought against the transformation. I focused on my humanity, on the life I'd left behind. For a moment, I felt the process begin to reverse. The entities around me let out a collective wail of frustration. The deer thing's eyes blazed with fury. You cannot fight your destiny, it roared, its form shifting into something monstrous and indescribable. But I held firm, clinging to my sense of self even as the cosmic horrors battered at the edges of my consciousness. Slowly, painfully, I felt the roots release their hold. My skin began to return to normal, the bark-like texture fading away. The shimmering entities backed away, their forms becoming less distinct. This isn't over, they hissed in unison. You are marked. You will always be a part of this world. As I stumbled away from the clearing, my mind reeling from what I'd experienced, I heard the deer thing's voice one last time, run if you must, but remember, the forest is patient. We have eternity to wait. I ran through the woods, branches whipping at my face, my lungs burning with exertion. I didn't stop until I reached my car, fumbling with the keys with shaking hands. As I sped away from the forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. In the days and weeks that followed, I tried to convince myself it had all been a hallucination, a vivid nightmare brought on by stress and an overactive imagination. But deep down, I knew the truth. The forest had shown me things that couldn't be unseen, opened my eyes to a reality far vaster and more terrifying than I'd ever imagined. I found myself looking at the world differently. Every tree seemed to whisper secrets, every shadow held the potential for terror. I could sense the thin veil that separated our reality from the cosmic horrors that lurked just beyond, and I knew that my encounter in the woods had weakened that barrier. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I would wake to find my skin taking on the texture of bark, or hear whispers in a language no human tongue could pronounce. The entities had marked me, claimed me in some fundamental way, and I knew they wouldn't give up easily. I tried to research what had happened to me, delving into ancient texts and obscure folklore. I found scattered references to others who had been chosen by the forest, who had glimpsed the true nature of reality and been forever changed by it. Some had gone mad, while others had disappeared into the woods, never to be seen again. As the months passed, I found myself drawn to other areas of wilderness, sensing the same ancient power that had called to me in those first woods. Each forest held its own secrets, its own entities and horrors waiting to be discovered. And each time I ventured into the wild, I felt the transformation begin anew, the cosmic entities pressing against the barriers of reality. I knew I was walking a dangerous path. Each encounter left me changed, my humanity slipping away bit by bit. But I couldn't stop. The knowledge I'd gained, the glimpses of a universe far vaster and more terrifying than we could imagine, it was addictive. And so, I find myself here now, standing at the edge of yet another forest, feeling the familiar pull of ancient powers and cosmic horrors. I know that one day, I may not be strong enough to resist the transformation. One day, I might become the very thing I fear, a bridge between worlds, a harbinger of terrors beyond imagination. But until that day comes, I'll continue to explore the deep, dark woods and the cryptid horrors that dwell within them. For I've seen the true face of reality, and there's no going back. The forest has claimed me, marked me as its own, and my journey into the heart of cosmic terror is far from over. As I take my first steps into this new wilderness, I can't help but wonder, what ancient entities await me in the shadows? What cosmic horrors will I glimpse this time? And how much of my humanity will remain when I emerge? The trees seem to whisper as I pass, welcoming me back to a world of primal fears and eldritch terrors. And somewhere in the depths of the forest, I sense something stirring, something vast and ancient and hungry. I'm here, I whisper, both a challenge and a prayer. Show me your secrets. And as the forest closes in around me, I know that my true journey into horror has only just begun. For once you've glimpsed the face of cosmic terror, once you've walked in the realm of cryptids and forest phantoms, you can never truly return to the light. The darkness calls, and I must answer. For I am the bridge, the chosen one, the key to unlocking horrors beyond imagination. And in the end, I may be the only thing standing between our world and the cosmic entities that hunger to break through. As night falls and the shadows deepen, I press on into the heart of the woods, ready to face whatever terrors await me. For in this world of deep, dark forests and cryptid horrors, there are no happy endings, only the endless cycle of discovery, terror, and transformation. And so, my journey continues, a never-ending descent into the very heart of cosmic horror. What I'll find there, what I'll become, only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the forest is waiting, and its patience is eternal.